that because, and that's for Laplanche the primordial form of unconscious, that the other also doesn't know what it wants. That's the beginning of being human. When you see that the lack is not yours, so that you have an impenetrable other. No, the lack is in the other itself. So now this is very abstract, but this would have been my basic formula of ethics of psychoanalysis. Not to betray, not your own lack. Because this poetic proposition, I always lack, I never get it, that's bullshit. That's usual pessimist wisdom. The crucial point is to transpose this lack into the figure of the big other itself. Society, God, or whatever, the lack is there. So returning, I didn't lose the thread, to your question, desire, drive. I oscillate here. I admit it. My first point here is now I will not just criticize trans ideologies, but as I always refer here to Judith Butler, say something good about them. The problem with excess of jouissance, it's not just that it's always missing, whatever we get, it's not that, but also that we never can get rid of it. As Judith Butler points out nicely, let's say you try to renounce jouissance. You have a certain idea which is unacceptable for you of perverted whatever sexual enjoyment, you renounce it. But then you begin to enjoy the very rituals measures of exclusion. This is the standard.
That's a surplus jouissance, right?
Yeah. So I go to the end here. There is no enjoyment without this surplus enjoyment. Enjoyment as such is a surplus. So to go a step further, the meaning in which I said that desire is also an escape is that in the drive you get caught into this closed loop of jouissance. Now, the desire is a reaction to the deadlock of this closed loop. You see it suffocating, so you say, let's move the object to a beyond. We desire some X, we never get it. In the same way, I also say that drive is an escape from the deadlock of desire. Desire is this desire for the always missing object. The answer of drive is, but what if I really desire this lack itself? If the lack is not simply a lack, but I enjoy this lack itself, and I like repeating this lack. That's how, it's a very detailed point, how Lacan reached Freud's famous example of Ford Dad, the child who plays. He doesn't simply want to keep the object. He enjoys, in the full sense of the term, the very disappearing and reappearing of the object. And I think this logic of enjoying the lack and all that, it's crucial to understand all the strange perversities, here I use the term in a strict way, going on in today's politics. We find this in certain forms of cancel culture, where the pleasure in discovering new and new transgressions to be cancelled is obvious, not to mention the right-wing populism, which is full of obscene desires, and so on and so on. So these are not just abstract theoretical points. So, but nonetheless, to come back to your point, my ultimate answer, it will not satisfy you now, would have been that there is a parallel between desire and drive. Drive is an excess, desire is a lack. And they are like two sides of the same coin.
Say they have an extimate relation, right?
Yeah. But 2 points to a certain, I call it ontological gap. which cannot be recaptured neither by desire nor by drive. In this sense, I agree with you that we shouldn't. There was a tendency a couple of years ago, which is why when I will take power, I will first send myself to Gulag or re-education camp. I was at some point years ago tempted by this idea of desire, a compromise, good drive. No, I agree with you. Totalitarianism at its purest has the structure of a drive, of this stupid closed loop of satisfaction. And it's precisely the way you described your friends who lost their way. I think that only people who go to the end into whatever, alcoholism, drugs, and so on, they go to the end in assuming jouissance, and it's self-destructive. The problem that we have today, I don't have time to go into it, is that conservatives in some sense know this. They are aware of this. But they offer as the only solution a return to desire, but desire in this old-fashioned Christian sense, desire as grounded in a prohibition. Unfortunately, even some Lacanians like Pierre Legendre, the lawyer, also Jacqueline Miller, follow this path. They say that if you fully abandon yourself to drive, it's self-destruction. So the formula proposed by Miller is for me a horrible one. So even if social prohibitions, the paternal law and so on, are not true in the sense that they have no true foundation, we have to accept them as necessary. We have to act as if they are true. I find this formula horrible because I think this was already in my surplus enjoyment book, or I forgot. I noticed that, that Miller unknowingly quotes here Kafka, when at the end of the trial, Joseph K. asks the priest, but this means that the law is a fake, a lie. The priest's answer is, no, what matters with the law is not that it's true. Of course, it's not true, but that it's necessary. This is, for me, the contemporary form of cynicism. You know it's not true, but you are afraid that if you abandon this appearance, you get lost. Everything disintegrates. So let's stick to it. And I think that I don't have yet a clear answer. I admit always my limitations, where I don't think I found the formula. That the great task of Lacan is precisely to avoid this choice, which is crucial in today's globalized, so-called, falsely so-called permissive.
Avoid the choice of drive or desire.
Avoid the choice of the ethics of drive, whatever it costs, go to the end, which is a suicidal loop.
Well, think about it. So if we let somebody just
of prohibition, like the only enjoyment is you have a prohibition and you transgress it a little bit, and so on and so on. I think, just to finish, that Lacan's answer to this is that in the opposition between sacrifice and desire, therefore Lacan not opposed